One of the Clippers' biggest weaknesses in the 2-1-3 era has been their lack of athleticism and lack of rim pressure. And this season, I think those things will be improved massively. And I'm going to be talking about why on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in Los Angeles and going into my 19th season as a Clipper fan this fall. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more Clipper and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available on all your favorite podcast platforms, including YouTube, where I want you to let me know if you agree with my take on whether or not the Clippers will be a decent amount more athletic this upcoming season. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So let's get right into it. I divided it into three categories for this one, and the first one is the hole. The hole being the missing piece, the biggest weakness of this Clipper team, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, the last 3 seasons or so: lack of rim pressure, lack of athleticism. One of the players we picked up this offseason was brought in to help that specific thing, and he talked about it on podcast P on Monday. So I'm going to be talking about what I took from that and going from there. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the hole. The main thing that's been missing from this Clipper team is that rim pressure, that athleticism. Let's look at last season's team in its entirety from start to finish, not just the end product. So that means all the players we had throughout the course of the season. For example, we started with a starting lineup of Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Paul George, Marcus Morris, and Ivica Zubats. That was our starting five. And then we realized Norman Powell wasn't really that guy to start, and we went with, well, when Kawhi was healthy, it ended up being Kawhi. But we shuffled through a couple of guys. Luke Kennard. It was a little bit of Terance Mann starting as well at the two at one point. But the consistent theme was that, and even going back to the 2021 season, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they're not getting to the rim enough. They're not getting 2 feet in the paint consistently enough, getting the step on their defenders and making the defense collapse. Not to say that they don't draw double teams and draw extra attention and ever get the defense to collapse. They always do. But I'm just saying, everyone knows, especially in an isolation situation where teams will switch everything. We've seen, especially Kawhi, he doesn't really have that same burst he once did. And he never was the quickest guy per se. He obviously is so savvy, such a good jump shooter that players will, get right into his airspace and then he'll rip through and get by them. That happens sometimes, of course, but you guys know what I mean. And anyone that denies it, I think, is a little bit delusional and just lying to themselves. I'm a Clipper fan. Why would I be lying to you guys? And everyone knows it. That's why the Clippers brought in John Wall initially, and he was part of our team last season. And it didn't work out, even though you could tell he was quicker and more athletic than like 90% of the team. But now we have Russell Westbrook, and he was brought in for two purposes. One, we thought we lacked a true playmaking point guard, someone capable of even averaging 8+ assists and does it consistently without having to step far out of their comfort zone, that being their comfort zone. We tried it with John Wall. It didn't work out. I've explained so many times why I think it didn't work out. So I'm not going to go too far into depth about it in this one. But John Wall, fantastic player in his Wizards days and still a decent player that I think is capable of being a backup somewhere. But John Wall seemed like he very much wanted to show he was a starter, and I just don't think he's that level anymore after the injuries, unfortunately. But Russell Westbrook, we quickly found out and his performance in the playoffs was absolutely stellar. And you saw the athleticism of Russ. being 33 years old and being the most athletic player on our team, blocking 7-foot Kevin Durant from behind, elevating to the rim as well as anybody on the team. And you would have to say the most athletic players in terms of speed, burst, and bounce on the Clippers last season would be Russell Westbrook, Norman Powell, and Terance Mann. I mean, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are fantastic, especially size-wise. But in terms of burst, getting to the rim, I think those three guys take the cake. And I think one of the reasons why this hole is going to be filled this season, not to say we're going to be a super athletic team or a super fast team and that gets the rim all the time, but having Russell Westbrook from day one as opposed to Reggie Jackson last year, I don't think people understand what that's going to mean for the regular season. If Russell Westbrook can stay healthy, knock on wood, we saw that he gets to the rim, gets 2 feet in the paint more than anybody on our team, and he sees the open man a lot of the time. Is he going to be perfect? Is he going to have 0 turnovers? No, he oftentimes will turn the ball over, but that happens when you take risks, and many of the all-time greats turn the ball over. Russell Westbrook is no different, but he will still create tons of good looks by getting to that rim much more than Reggie Jackson ever did and much better than John Wall did. We're going to have that from day one. Another thing we're going to have from day one is a backup center that's a lob threat. Moses Brown, he could barely get off the ground, all due respect to him. Incredible size, but Mason Plumlee is honestly a better leaper than Zoo. Not honestly, he is. He was in the dunk contest once upon a time. And even though he doesn't have that same bounce, he still has more of a lob threat, more of a vertical than Zoo. And Zoo, not to say he doesn't catch lobs, he does, but usually the passes have to be at a certain height for Zoo. Oftentimes, the player throwing the lob pass is free throw line or in. Whereas with Mason Plumlee, I think you can throw a pass to him for a lob beyond the 3-point line and he can go up there and get it. Not to say he's DeAndre Jordan or anything or BG, but Mason Plumlee, having him from the beginning of the season, I think he and Russ will really add to the athleticism factor. And in terms of the speed burst conversation, Bones Highland, having him from day one is going to be massive. When you go to games, if you go to games, Clipper Nation, and for those that don't get the luxury, Clipper fans around the world that don't get to go to games, Bones Highland, I mean, he might look quick on TV, but he really can go fast with the ball and push the pace for us. And that really stuck out to me in person. So I think all those things considered, we are going to be a much more athletic team this season relative to last year, in the sense that we're going to be getting to the rim more. We're going to be trying to fast break a little more off misses and turnovers. We're going to try to push the pace just a little bit because transition shots, open shots aren't bad for anybody. Are we going to be the Showtime Lakers? No. Are we going to be the Golden State Warriors of the 2010s with KD and Steph? Honestly, not even with KD. Are we going to be the Warriors with Steve Curry era? No. We're not going to play at that kind of pace, but I think we will be a faster team, more spry, more bounce, more speed than last season. And I think it's going to be a point of emphasis. And coming up, going to be talking about the main man that's brought in to help that point of emphasis, KJ Martin. Going to be talking about him coming up. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $2,000 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right. So, KJ Martin, also known as Kenyon Martin Jr., son of former Clipper Kenyon Martin Sr., is now a Clipper coming over from the Houston Rockets. And I got to see him play live this season against the Clippers in a game where Paul George hit a game winner. And KJ Martin was the absolute standout in that game for the Houston Rockets. He was hitting the three ball better than he normally does. Of course, that's one thing that he needs to get better at, shooting the ball in the, I think, 32, 33% range, just off the top of my head. I think it was 31.6. I'm going to have to fact check that one, but it was around that, low 30s. But the thing that stuck out to me was his athleticism, his bounce. And I remember seeing one clip in a Rico Hines, offseason summer run at UCLA. This alley-oop he caught. Oh my God, he absolutely murdered someone. It was actually ridiculous. Actually ridiculous. And you could see that bounce in that game I went to. He is going to be, I talked about Mason Plumlee as a lob threat. And I said, oh, we don't have a DeAndre Jordan. We got a guy now that can get up to the, a las estrellas. You know what I'm saying? He can get to the stars. He can go to the moon. KJ Martin. To see Russell Westbrook get a chance to play with him, maybe a little Terance Mann on a fast break action. That's another guy I didn't even talk about is Terance Mann. If Ty Lue plays T-Man more like every single Clipper fan and their mother and father wants, then we will also get more athleticism in that sense because Terance is so good attacking closeouts. He really elevates at the rim. He's an offensive rebounding threat, which Russell Westbrook is as well, which makes him so unique at his size. And he's fantastic in transition going downhill. Fantastic. KJ Martin now adds an element. Like if we imagine we throw out Russ, Bones, Terance, KJ, Plumlee. That's a lineup of a bunch of guys that can handle the ball, a bunch of guys that can kind of make a play, and some guys that can go to the roof. 5 guys that can dunk, 4 of them that can really dunk. So, man, I'm having ideas there. If we're going to go small, that's a pretty fun small ball lineup right there. Push the pace. Russ, Bones, Mason, Kenyon Martin. The spacing is a little questionable, but you would have to go out there and run, move without the ball. That would be fun. That would be fun. But KJ Martin was specifically brought in to add athleticism. A lob threat is one thing, maybe an offensive rebounding threat, transition, but also defensively. That's one thing we really lacked at that 4 spot. Robert Covington, we didn't really get to see much of him. Nicholas Batum, great player, absolutely a fantastic athlete for his age, but he definitely is dropping off and declining, which is normal being 34, 35 years old. And Marcus Morris, after the first month or so of the season, he couldn't get off the ground. He couldn't jump over a phone book, to be honest. Obviously an exaggeration, but maybe not. We were slow and old and athletic at that 4 spot. When Zubac was drawn out of the paint, without Kawhi, we didn't really have much secondary rim protection. Guys rotating that make a difference, So getting a KJ Martin, that's something that we're going to definitely look for him to do, is be that weak side rotating guy on that low block. Be that guy that comes out of nowhere for an athletic block or just to alter shots. And when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are healthy, I think they're not bad, especially Kawhi, at being that guy as well. And so much of that small ball is not as effective defensively when you don't have those athletic wings that can sometimes defend on the interior. And having a KJ Martin will add to that. You put KJ Martin, Kawhi, and Paul George out there, that's a lot of size, a lot of length, and a decent amount of athleticism. Because athleticism is not just speed and bounce. We're talking hand-eye coordination. We're talking strength. We're talking presence of mind, how you use your body. Kawhi Leonard has massive hands that are almost as big as Dr. J. So, that matters as well. The thing about Kawhi is you throw any ball in his vicinity, he's snatching that thing like it's a Nerf ball. Every time there's a scrum on the floor and Kawhi's hands are in the mix, 99% of the time, Kawhi comes up with it. And I'm like, scrum, Kawhi is the one that's going to come up with that. The claw. You already know what it is. KJ Martin, though, will absolutely help in this way. Now, is he going to start? I do not think so. I don't think he is ready to start. But Ty Lue, sometimes he can be full of surprises. As I said, we need to get rid of Marcus Morris, in my opinion, because if Marcus Morris is still on the roster, he could still be playing for all we know. And he absolutely takes away from the entire premise of this episode. We need more athletic, spry guys around Kawhi and Paul because they don't get to the rim enough. They're banged up frequently. They are on the I don't want to even say older side of 33 and 32 because They're still playing at such a high level when they're on the court. It's just their bodies. We don't trust it. That's why the Harden stuff is a conversation in the first place. But KJ Martin, I'm just super excited to get some real above the rim highlights along with Westbrook throughout the course of a season. And one guy I haven't even mentioned really that much, Norman Powell. He's a guy that was probably our best player in terms of getting to the rim throughout the course of the season. Points in the paint. I would love to see who leads us. I would assume it's Ivica Zubac, but Norman Powell, in terms of getting to the line, getting 2 feet in the paint, attacking closeouts, he was number one. So hopefully he can stay healthy and he's still on the roster this upcoming season. But Russell Westbrook, Norman Powell, Terance Mann, KJ Martin, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. Now we're talking a little bit more athleticism. Bones Highland, we're talking a little more speed. A team that can make a difference and not just be so half court. Of course, we're going to primarily be a half court team. And I think we can have great half court offense when everyone's healthy. But with Westbrook, you want to be able to run and gun a bit. And getting KJ Martin only helps our personnel fit Russ's needs and give us different dimensions. But coming up, KJ Martin and his father and Terance Mann were on Monday's podcast, Pete, and I thought they said some great things. Wanted to discuss them coming up. All right. So, Paul George released the most recent episode of Podcast P. I suggest you listen to it after you listen to Locked on NBA. But Terance Mann, KJ Martin, and his father were on the show on Monday. And as far as Terance Mann, obviously seems like a great guy. I still have not had the pleasure of meeting Terance Mann, but he is my favorite Clipper. I'm very public about that for obvious reasons. And I thought what was interesting about the episode was one, what they were saying about Kawhi and his humor. I think it's really funny because Kawhi, I can totally see being that guy who is just funny on the low because he seems so serious and he doesn't seem like a guy that talks a lot. But when he does say something and it's with a little bit of like humor to it, or maybe even when he's not trying to be funny, I can see him being one of those guys that when he's not trying to be funny, he just is. And those are the funniest kind of people, in my opinion, the ones that aren't trying to be funny. And I can see Kawhi as that guy that, serious and isn't very, I don't even want to say serious. I don't really know the guy, but he comes across serious, when he smiles, it's a big deal to the media. And it seems like he's more of an introvert from everything we know about him, from what they say. But when he says things, especially with some humor to it, I can see that being extra funny. So that was one thing I thought that was interesting. I also thought something that was cool was them talking about what it comes with being a Clipper in LA. And I've talked about this a lot of times on Dime Dropper channel, but not as much on Locked On Clippers. And I just want to say this about Kawhi and Paul George's decision, especially Kawhi, to come to the Clippers and choose them over the Lakers. That second-class citizen kind of thing that every Clipper fan in LA feels and every Clipper player kind of feels, just being that second attraction, the team that gets the 12:30 game, the team that gets less coverage, the team that gets less attention, the team that when you go out in public, you might get heckled, the team that when you go to a Dodger Stadium or a SoFi Stadium and they show you on the big screen, you get booed. That doesn't make you feel welcome. That doesn't make you feel like it's your city. And so they were talking about that. And I just think for an athlete to choose the Clippers, and I think, again, it would take a special kind of athlete. Kawhi Leonard, everything I just said about him, that introvertness, that guy that doesn't like the social media, doesn't like the spotlight, doesn't want to say too many things, just wants to play basketball, do his job. Clippers being more on the low key side of things was the move. And he was that special kind of superstar. So I really commend Kawhi for choosing the Clippers. That's something that he knew that this was coming. Being a SoCal guy, I think everyone knows when you come to the Clippers, you're going to get all those things I said, that second-class citizen kind of treatment. And I think that's something that people that don't live in Los Angeles really need to know. And it's not easy, especially, it's not easy as a fan, if you care a lot. It's not easy as a player. I've seen, I know women that tell me, oh, like, so many stories, even just on Twitter, when they see on the dating app that I like the Clippers or something, they're just like making jokes and like, it's just hilarious. It's just hilarious. But that kind of stuff happens. I remember someone had a Clipper license plate and it got vandalized one time. Like, it was just, that kind of stuff happens. So some people are just really petty. It takes a lot, in my opinion. I know as a player, you have the protection, you have the money, whatever, but still, I don't think that feels great to play in a city, especially a city that you do consider home to a degree, like Paul Kawhi and Russ do, and you'll get booed. But they know what comes with it, and that's why I commend them. And they know that. And one thing Paul George said is that Clipper Nation is a great fan base. He was telling KJ Martin that, and that means a lot to me just to hear that from him. And KJ Martin now going to him, it was really cool to see both Kenyon Sr. and Kenyon Martin Jr. And KJ Martin, the enthusiasm that he spoke with about being on a team that is playing to win is awesome. Because there really is something about being in a losing environment that can make you disinterested. It can make you a worse version of yourself. And Houston was so all over the place every single time I watched them last season, except for the game that we played them, of course. But most games I watched them, they were a disaster on both ends of the floor, completely all over the place. A team that didn't seem like they were responding to the coach, a team that seemed like they just didn't care about winning much and weren't serious, and a very young team without vets. And KJ Martin is now going to be the young guy on the team, a guy surrounded by vets. And he seems like he has that grittiness to him. And why wouldn't he, by being Kenyon Martin Sr.'s son? Like Kenyon Martin Sr., let's just talk about Kmart for a sec. We got him in that lockout season, and he told the story in this one about how it was Chauncey that kind of recruited him. So we had Chauncey that season, but he didn't really get to play with him much because he tore his Achilles against Orlando. But Kmart, coming into that Clipper team in 2012, he was so massive off the bench alongside Reggie Evans, the original. Their toughness off the bench in a series against the toughest team in the West physically, in the Memphis Grizzlies with Tony Allen, Mike Conley, Marc Gasol, Zebo, can't stand them. We needed that, especially because DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin were so young. At this time, that was BG's second season in the league. To go against the Zebo and a Mark, that was big. And I'll never forget Kenyon Martin Jr.'s one-on-one stop and isolation against Rudy Gay in game one of that first round after we came back from 27 down, 24 in the fourth quarter to beat them in game one. And that really ended up being the difference. Even though we still won a game 7, I don't think we could have done it without Kenyon Martin. So I'm forever thankful for to him for that, even though it was only 1 year we had him on the squad. And now we get some lineage with Kmart Jr. on the Clippers. And I'm super excited to have him. The passion in which he spoke about being angry that Damian Lillard dropped 70 points against them was very made me very happy. Made me very happy to hear Kmart Sr. say how much his son hates losing, and happy to see Kenyon Martin Jr. have that kind of anger in his tone, talking about Dame scoring 70 on him. So hopefully we don't get anybody scoring 70 on the Clippers this upcoming season, but check it out and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of what I said about the Clippers from an athletic perspective being much better this season. I think they're not totally going to be one of the more athletic teams in the league, but I think they're filling the hole to a degree by having certain guys from the beginning of the season. Hopefully, and I'm just putting my faith in Ty Lue, hopefully Terance Mann, having been, now one of the longer tenured Clippers, can get more minutes so we can showcase that rim pressure, that athleticism, and KJ Martin plays a role as well. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for more. And make sure to subscribe to Locked On Clippers. Hit the notification bell so every single time we post a video. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.